John Wick Chapter 4 just did in 3 days what it took an entire theatrical box office run of the first John Wick film to do, and then doubled over again. And it's done almost as much as the entire theatrical run of John Wick 2. It's incredible. This is the franchise that just keeps growing. We're going to talk about the box office, and I'm going to share my thoughts on the review of this film as well. Let's get into it. Renegade Online. Well, welcome back. Another great day here at Valiant Renegade. It's good to see everybody out there once again. And if you are like one of the many folks watching this video not yet subscribed to this channel, please make sure you turn that little red subscribe button to gray, hit that notification bell, hit that like button, share this sucker out on your favorite social medias. And of course, please do leave a comment before you head out the door today. Let me know what you think about John Wick. I'm going to give you my thoughts. I'm going to replay a review clip that I did from a video that I put out Friday. I'm going to do that one again in this video today for those that missed it. But what we want to talk about mostly up front is the brand new box office numbers for John Wick 4's opening weekend. The numbers, freshly updated data here for John Wick Chapter 4 with the estimated totals through today, Sunday's close of business. 73.5 million in the domestic box office. That would be US and Canada box office. International box office, 64 million. That is somewhat higher than was anticipated just a few days ago by places like Deadline Magazine, which we're going to get to in just a moment, that have some additional metrics that we need to look at. $137.563 million right there so far, worldwide box office. And as a reminder, folks, that is about double that of the entire first John Wick movie just 9 years ago. The entire first film's run globally brought in 76 million. And that, my friends, is some damn good brand building power right there. This is something that found its way into fans' hearts after the first movie left the theaters, and people found out about it through PVOD and physical media sales. It became a big, big cult following for this kind of film. And that's a great thing for it, because each and every outing into theaters, the receipts have roughly doubled. And it looks like it's got a chance of happening again with John Wick 4. From Deadline Magazine, a $72+ million opening, a franchise record, best for Lionsgate distributors in the pandemic era. Early estimates on John Wick Chapter 4 show a similar Friday previews to Saturday trajectory of -13% as John Wick Chapter 3 for $25.66 million for a revised franchise and Lionsgate pandemic record opening of $72.5. I want to go back to some of the previous updates because it actually brings in some more very interesting data that was not yet available on the last video that we put out Friday coming into this weekend. You can see here on the Saturday AM update, Friday night came in with 25.4 million, and at that point they were seeing just over 70. The numbers, as you see, continue to climb. I would not be at all surprised if we don't see close to a $75 million weekend closeout for this one. And this is important to note, IMAX and PLFs are driving nearly 40% of all ticket sales for John Wick. And I cannot tell you enough how much I recommend that you have to see this on a PLF screen. You have to experience this on the biggest screen with the best sound system possible. Intelligence reports that over a third of the Pix foot traffic has been in IMAX, PLF, and 4DX locations at a ratio that high. And as the box office comes back from the pandemic, we just need more of these kind of auditoriums, no? Yes. Absolutely. Now here's the money spending kicker. More great exits on John Wick 4 show 93% on post-track, 82% definite recommend. That's incredibly high. The latter, which is higher than John Wick Chapter 3's Parabellum, was a 75%, and that's already incredibly high for a definite recommend. The latest installment was 69% guy leaning, 56% of those between the ages of 18 and 34, 31% of those between 25 and 34. The latter, the largest quadrant of that. Diversity demographics are strong across all sectors. 32% Caucasian versus Parabellum's 42, 28% Latino, and Hispanic versus 22 for the previous entry. 19% Black audience, same as the last film, and 21% Asian versus the previous film's 14. Now, no doubt that boost in the Asian audience was certainly brought on by having such heavy hitters like Donnie Yen and Hiroyuki Sanada in this picture, both of which were absolutely incredible. And it was so much fun seeing those two actually fight one another, one coming from a more traditional Japanese martial arts background and the other coming from a Chinese kung fu background. It's great to see those two styles get really mixed up in a film like this. It was just a bunch of fun. Now, here's another key piece from this article. After watching this 2 hour and 49-minute film, 26% of those polled by PostTrack say they would see it again in a theater, while 54% claim that they will watch it again in the home market. And yeah, this is definitely a movie you need to see twice, and I think a lot of people will. I know I'm going to go back and see it a couple of more times before it leaves PLF for sure. When you have a movie that runs 2 hours and 49 minutes, let's just call it 3 hours long, that reduces the number of showings that theaters can actually put into certain auditoriums. They can't take up every screen in the theater trying to pepper out the timescales, and especially when people want to go see it in a PLF screen, there's only maybe 2, 3, or 4, if you're super lucky, showings each and every day on a given PLF screen, depending on how early to how late they want to run them. That's not very many. It's a big difference than having, say, a 2-hour film. And that, of course, does affect the box office. Let's go back to the chart at the numbers one last time. These are excellent opening weekend numbers for a movie like this with a building franchise that is a rated R film. Rated R films tend to eliminate a great deal of rather normal, routine cinematic audiences out there. But this one is going to hang on, and because of its runtime, I suspect that John Wick Chapter 4 is going to leg out very similarly to the previous entries. And if we look here, you'll see that those leg outs, the first movie, a domestic open of 14, and it closed at 43. A domestic open on the second of 30, it closed at 92. A domestic open of 56 on the third with a close of 171. Yep, that means that all three of those previous John Wick entries legged out to about 3x like clockwork each and every time. Think back to the audiences for Top Gun Maverick. The audiences skewed older, more male, and more repetition in seeing that film. You're going to see something very much similar here for John Wick 4. I'm not saying the movie is going to rocket its way up to $1.5 billion. That would be spectacular. That's unlikely to happen. But what we will see here is probably John Wick finally reaching the $500 million mark on this film, or at least get very close to it. Because this movie came in with about a $100 million production budget, certainly by far and away the biggest production budget of a John Wick film to date. Now, let's assume for a second that John Wick spent somewhere maybe an equal portion, maybe as much as another $100 million on marketing. So this film probably is going to need to get to around $400 million to cover its floor costs. I think it's going to do that fairly easily, make a good bit of money at the theater, and then follow the historical pattern with John Wick, as Lionsgate will allow this movie to sell through to a dedicated PVOD sale and rental window before it ever makes its way to some streaming service. They're going to make a ton of money after the theater on this movie, in other words, just like they have with previous Wick entries. And once again, I am going to share my non-spoiler review of John Wick because I really want you folks to go see this movie. Check this out. I must begin by confessing that I lied, or at least made a grave error. I recently told my YouTube audience that Tom Cruise is the last real action hero in Hollywood. Well, he isn't. At least, he's not the only one. Enter Keanu Reeves, stage right. If you've enjoyed the previous John Wick entries, then drop your Glock, your Heckler & Koch, your Benelli, or your Sig Sauer and race to the nearest PLF theater, preferably in a slate gray 1969 Mustang Boss 429. And strap into that luxury recliner for nearly 3 hours of pure, mind-bending carnage incarnate. Normally, when I'm greeted with a runtime like this on a film, one not named The Lord of the Rings, I utter a reflexive, ugh. But that wasn't the case with John Wick Chapter 4, at all. When the 2 hour and 40-minute spec was revealed, I became incredibly excited at the prospect as a huge John Wick fan. I knew instantly beyond the shadow of a doubt that the enormous runtime would be absolutely wall-to-flipping wall jammed with jaw-dropping stunts and an engrossing story. And well, I was 100% dead on right. The runtime is almost unnoticeable. The story moves like a 9mm round fired at 1,500 feet per second from the muzzle of John Wick's $7,000 TTI Pit Viper. By the way, try to avoid drooling when you see it on camera Swiss cheesing high table emissaries. This entire film is eye candy. The sets are stunning. The lighting and cinematography is everything I've come to expect from the Wick franchise, and then elevated even further for this latest entry. The sound design is once again outstanding. The engineers are left with zero superfluous dialogue and can thereby focus on making hundreds, if not thousands, of gunshots each have their own space to really work those premium theatrical sound systems. The gravity of each shotgun blast is allowed to pump its transient low-end percussion, which gets felt as much as heard. By the way, can you say dragon's breath? Sure. I knew that you could. And then there's the choreography. Dear God, the choreography. And this, folks, is where Keanu Reeves gives Tom Cruise a run for his money. Cruise spent years learning to fly fighter jets, hang precariously from airplanes mid-flight, even drive motorcycles at full speed off the sides of gorges in Norway, while Christopher McQuarrie has heart failure, waiting for Tom's chute to open. Reeves, however, retorts with a hold my gun and watch this. Reeves has spent nearly a decade training in tactical combat with guns, knives, bare fists, and yes, pencils. And as bonkers and seemingly impossible as some of the stunts and fights are, it's all delivered in a perfectly believable way. That's thanks largely to a lack of CGI apart from some blood spatter. Okay, a lot of blood spatter. Practical effects and real fights done on set and in camera is what gives this film its depth and realism, just like Top Gun Maverick and the Mission Impossible franchise. Take notes, Marvel Studios. This is how it's done properly, and with a budget less than half that of your bland nonsense. Like Tom Cruise, Keanu Reeves is pushing 60 years old now, but you'd never know it watching him on camera. These old boys can quite clearly run circles around their younger and far less capable counterparts, and that's because they seem infinitely more dedicated to their craft, delivering something truly unique for the audiences they love. And the audiences love them right back for it. And as if that wasn't enough, we were treated to the skilled Japanese martial arts prowess of Hiroyuki Sanada from Mortal Kombat and Bullet Train, and the legendary Chinese kung fu of Donnie Yen from Ip Man. By the way, did anybody else get a kick out of the fact that Donnie Yen was playing another butt-kicking blind guy? Looking at you, Star Wars Rogue One. Now, I'm not going to spoil anything in this movie, but I would advise you pay close attention to a final scene. There's seemingly a random shot of Wick's dog, but I assure you, it's not random. A movie that carefully crafted doesn't show that without trying to drop you a hint. That being said, I'll see you for John Wick 5.